When I shared this with my son and my daughters, they were like 10, 11, 12 years old. Most of you haven't even heard what I'm going to be saying here now. Has modern medicine, now most of you think it has modern medicine pretty much eliminated STDs and infections? Almost just the opposite. When I was your age, wow, that was a long time ago. That was a few decades ago. When I was your age, there were only mainly two sexually transmitted diseases, syphilis and gonorrhea. Both were cured with a shot. Do you know how many major sexually transmitted diseases there are now? 25. Actually, you could put it about 100, but 25 major sexually transmitted diseases with all the modern medicine and everything. And when I was your age, there was two. 19 of these 25, there's no cure. Bet you didn't know that. You know why? They're viruses. They're viruses, and there is no cure. No shot, no nothing. There is no cure. Look at it this way. In the 1960s, 1 out of every 60 teens sexually involved got an STD. In the 1970s, 1 out of 47. In 2010, 1 out of 4. You see the difference with the culture you're living in and all over the world? China, Peru, France, Kazakhstan, Ghana, Nigeria, Jamaica, Texas, but all over the world, 25 major sexually transmitted diseases. Those of you that I'm sharing with from other countries, I don't know all the stats in your countries. It's almost impossible to get them. But those that I have been able to get and check out, there's very little difference between any culture in the world than from the American culture. Almost every culture is just a little bit ahead or a little bit behind. Now, in much of my conversation, I'll be using statistics about the United States. But in Argentina, trust me, not number-wise, percentage-wise, is the same thing in Argentina as here, or in China, or it could be a little worse in China than Argentina. And there, let me show you. Do you know there are 70 million Americans right now with a sexually transmitted disease? 40-some million incurable. No cure. 500 million people every year in the world, 500 million, get a sexually transmitted disease every year. Multiply that out. 500 million. Just in the United States, every 12 months, 19 million Americans get a sexually transmitted disease. That's not through 4 years of high school or college. That's every year of high school and college. That's 52,055 Americans every single day gets a sexually transmitted disease. You think you can play around and beat the odds? There's hardly anyone in the world that will play around sexually and beat the odds. The statistics show it. I documented in my book, Why True Love Waits. That's 2,169 Americans every single hour, 24/7, gets a sexually transmitted disease. In the United States with teenagers, 1 in 4 14 to 19-year-olds are infected with HPV, chlamydia, genital herpes, and trichomoniasis. 1 out of every 4 who has ever had sex. Right now, they're infected. Let me ask you a question. What percentage of sexually active women can expect to get an HPV infection? If you're a woman, now, whenever you use the term sexually active, that means just one time. That includes somebody who just had sex one time when they were 14, they're considered sexually active. That's key to understand. And the reason is these diseases stay in your life for years. So when I say sexually active teen or a scientist does whatever, That can be a person that just had sex one time and are 14 years old. What percentage of sexually active women can expect to get the number one sexually transmitted virus, HPV? What do you think? 20%? 60%? 80%? 120%? It's 80% of sexually active women will get, and there's no cure for it, there's no cure for it, HPV, will get infected by HPV. Don't tell me you'll beat the odds. The reason is, you go all the way through high school and college, think you beat the odds, and about 28, 30, you get some blood tests, something else, you gotta go home and tell your spouse, I'm infected. I'm infected.
How do I know if I'm ready to have sex? Sex is one of the most intimate relationships you will ever have with another person. Are you ready for that? Knowing that you will be a part of that person's life forever, whether it's imprinted physically or whether there's an imprint in your brain, you have to decide for yourself, but also for the other person. Are you ready to take the risk for STDs? Condoms, we've decided, are not safe enough. Are you ready for pregnancy or any of the other consequences of sex? The songs and the movies don't talk about consequences like that, but are you ready to change your future forever?